You've been lied to. Not by society, not by your parents, not even by your enemies, but by yourself. Every time you said, "I'll start when I feel ready," or "I just need more time," you were handing your life over to a ghost called someday. And the truth is, someday doesn't exist. The real reason most people stay stuck isn't because they lack talent or knowledge or opportunity. It's because they're waiting to feel a certain way before they take action. But feelings are fickle. They're fog. They shift with the weather, with your mood, with the smallest detail. And if you let your life be ruled by something so unstable, you'll never gain traction. Let me tell you something powerful: readiness is not a feeling. Readiness is a decision. The moment you decide, "I can't live like this anymore," that's the real starting line. Not when you get a new job. Not when your relationship improves. Not when life calms down. Now. Because now is the only moment you'll ever truly own. Everything else is just a projection. If you've ever woken up with that heavy feeling in your chest, knowing you're meant for more but doing nothing about it, you're not alone. But that feeling? It's not a sign of weakness. It's your soul banging on the walls, screaming, "Get up. We don't belong here anymore." This isn't about motivation. It's about reclaiming your agency. The belief that you don't need to be fully healed, fully confident, or fully ready. You just need to move. To fold a shirt. To take a walk. To start anywhere. Because once you do, you shatter the lie. The lie that says your future is waiting. It's not. Your future is begging you to begin. We're taught to believe that change begins when everything falls perfectly into place, when we finally feel confident, when the timing is right, when we're in the mood. But this idea is not only false, it's destructive. The illusion of readiness is the silent killer of dreams. It convinces you that waiting is wise, that hesitation is caution, that you're being responsible by not starting until you feel prepared. But here's the truth most people never face: you will never feel completely ready. You will never wake up one day magically free from fear, uncertainty, or doubt. That moment you're waiting for doesn't arrive. And while you wait for it, life keeps moving. Days pile up. Opportunities pass. Confidence decays. The people who actually changed their lives aren't the ones who felt ready, they're the ones who acted anyway. Even when they were scared. Even when they were messy. Even when they weren't sure if it would work. Neuroscience backs this up. Action activates the brain's reward system, reinforcing momentum and motivation. In simple terms, you don't act because you feel motivated. You feel motivated because you act. It's backward from what we've been told. So every time you think, "I'm not ready," understand this: that thought is not reality, it's resistance. It's your fear disguised as logic. And the longer you let it win, the further you drift from the life you could have had. You don't need more confidence. You don't need more clarity. You just need movement. Start with one thing. One task. One 5-minute action. Let that be your rebellion against this toxic myth. The illusion of readiness ends the moment you realize you're allowed to begin anyway. That's when change actually starts, not when you're ready, but when you refuse to keep waiting. There's a quiet, seductive trap that holds millions of people back. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It sounds like self-awareness. It sounds like truth. But it's a cage. It's called the victim mentality, and it thrives on the belief that life happened to you, and that's why you can't move forward. And it feels justified. After all, maybe you were hurt. Maybe you were overlooked, mistreated, misunderstood. Maybe your childhood really was difficult, your relationships really were painful, and your circumstances truly unfair. But here's the dangerous part: just because the pain is real doesn't mean it gets to define you. The moment you use your past as a reason to stay passive, you give it permission to rule your future. And it will, not because it's stronger than you, but because you keep handing it the keys. The victim mindset says, I can't do better because they did this to me. But true power, the kind that changes lives, begins with this question: what can I do now, even with what they did? Responsibility is not about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming your agency. You didn't choose what happened. But you do choose what happens next. And the harsh truth: as long as you need someone else to apologize, acknowledge, or understand you before you heal, you will wait forever. Because that validation may never come. But your next step, that's something you can give yourself. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's strength. It doesn't say, what they did was okay. It says, it's not going to control me anymore. Victimhood feels safe, but it costs everything. Growth demands you let go of the story that hurt you, not to erase it, but to stop rereading it. Because healing doesn't start when the pain ends. It starts the moment you stop using that pain as a reason to stand still. Change doesn't begin with a plan. It begins with honesty. Not the polite kind of honesty you say to friends, the brutal kind you whisper to yourself when no one else is around. The kind that makes your chest tight, your stomach sink, and your excuses melt away. Because the truth is, most people aren't stuck because they lack a path forward. They're stuck because they refuse to admit where they actually are. They keep pretending they're trying, figuring it out, getting there, when deep down they know, they've been hiding. Behind distraction. Behind perfectionism. Behind endless preparation. But growth demands truth. And the truth is, you've been procrastinating. You've been making promises to yourself that you don't keep. You've been living in a gap between what you know you should do and what you actually do. And that gap is where your confidence dies. Not because you're weak, but because you've been lying to yourself so long that even you don't believe you anymore. That's why the first real step isn't a new goal, it's an audit. Strip away the narrative. No more, I'm just tired, or life's too busy. Ask yourself the hard questions: what am I avoiding? What am I pretending not to know? What's the thing I keep putting off because it scares me? That discomfort you feel when you answer honestly, that's the place you start. Because no GPS in the world can take you anywhere unless it knows your current location. And your real location isn't a failure, it's just data. Use it. Face it. Own it. Because once you do, you stop fighting reality and start shaping it. Self-honesty isn't weakness. It's power. It's the beginning of momentum. And without it, every plan is just a performance. There's a quiet, seductive trap that holds millions of people back. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It sounds like self-awareness. It sounds like truth. But it's a cage. It's called the victim mentality, and it thrives on the belief that life happened to you, and that's why you can't move forward. And it feels justified. After all, maybe you were hurt. Maybe you were overlooked, mistreated, misunderstood. Maybe your childhood really was difficult, your relationships really were painful, and your circumstances truly unfair. But here's the dangerous part: just because the pain is real doesn't mean it gets to define you. The moment you use your past as a reason to stay passive, you give it permission to rule your future. And it will, not because it's stronger than you, but because you keep handing it the keys. The victim mindset says, I can't do better because they did this to me. But true power, the kind that changes lives, begins with this question: what can I do now, even with what they did? Responsibility is not about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming your agency. You didn't choose what happened. But you do choose what happens next. And the harsh truth: as long as you need someone else to apologize, acknowledge, or understand you before you heal, you will wait forever. Because that validation may never come. But your next step, that's something you can give yourself. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's strength. It doesn't say, what they did was okay. It says, it's not going to control me anymore. Victimhood feels safe, but it costs everything. Growth demands you let go of the story that hurt you, not to erase it, but to stop rereading it. Because healing doesn't start when the pain ends. It starts the moment you stop using that pain as a reason to stand still. We often think transformation is some grand, dramatic event, a total reinvention, a massive leap, a viral breakthrough. But real change doesn't shout. It whispers. It starts in the quietest corners of your day. Folding your laundry when you'd rather collapse on the bed. Saying no to the second scroll through social media. Choosing to walk instead of sulking. These seem trivial, right? Insignificant. But they're not. Every action you take, no matter how small, is casting a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. That's not philosophy. That's neuroscience and behavioral psychology. Your brain wires itself based on repetition. And every time you act with intention, even on a small scale, you reinforce an identity: I am someone who shows up. That identity builds trust, the kind of trust that doesn't come from words, but from proof. You don't become disciplined by reading about discipline. You become disciplined by doing one thing when it's easier to do nothing. You don't become confident by wishing for it. You become confident by keeping tiny promises to yourself over and over again until your mind finally says, I believe you now. Don't underestimate small actions. They are the blueprint of your self-worth. They are the cement of your new identity. Think about this: you may not control everything in life, but you can control whether you clean your desk, drink that glass of water, send that overdue message. And that small decision, it shifts your internal momentum. It interrupts the loop of avoidance and says, we're moving now. You don't need to do everything today. You just need to do something. And if you do, even quietly, you'll feel it. That subtle but powerful shift that says, I'm no longer who I was yesterday. That's how a new you begins, not in theory, but in motion. Discipline isn't loud. It doesn't demand applause. In fact, the most powerful discipline is invisible, built in silence, when no one is watching, and no one will ever know. It's easy to be consistent when others are cheering. It's easy to post your progress, to chase compliments, to feel motivated by external validation. But what happens when no one's there? When it's just you and a promise you made to yourself? That's when your true character is revealed. Because real discipline is doing the right thing even when no one will see it. No praise. No likes. Just you and your integrity. And here's the truth that changes lives: self-respect isn't built by how others treat you. It's built by how you treat yourself when no one's looking. Every time you keep a small promise, when you get up early without bragging, when you complete a task without posting it, when you stick to your word without reward, you're laying another brick in the foundation of who you are becoming. These aren't just habits. They're proof. Proof that you are someone worth trusting. Someone worth following, even when life gets hard. Most people don't fail because they're weak. They fail because they keep outsourcing their motivation. They perform for the world but neglect their private self. And in doing so, they slowly lose the most valuable thing a person can own: the ability to respect themselves. Silent discipline changes that. It anchors you. It becomes the voice in your head that says, we do what's right, even when no one claps. And that voice, that's your compass. That's what gets you through the storms. You don't need the world to know you're changing. You just need you to know. Because once you trust yourself, you become unstoppable, quietly, relentlessly, and with deep, unshakable pride. Perfectionism is not the pursuit of excellence, it's the fear of failure dressed up to look noble. It convinces you that unless you can do something perfectly, it's not worth doing at all. But perfectionism doesn't push you forward. It paralyzes you. It dangles impossible standards in front of your face and whispers, not yet. Not good enough. Not ready. And the longer you wait for perfect conditions, the more you delay real progress. Because perfect never arrives. The truth? The person who takes one imperfect action today is already miles ahead of the person who's been planning the perfect move for years. Life rewards momentum, not hesitation. It doesn't care how flawless your plans are if they never leave your notebook. And here's the painful irony: the longer you wait to be perfect, the further you fall behind. Not because you're not capable, but because your standards become your prison. What if you could release yourself from that cage? What if the smallest, sloppiest first step was actually your breakthrough? The 2-minute rule from Atomic Habits says, if something takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. Why? Because it gets you moving. And momentum is always more powerful than mastery. You don't need to overhaul your entire life today. You just need to do the nearest, simplest thing, and do it imperfectly. Make the call. Write the email. Do the push-ups, badly, if you have to. Perfection is the enemy of growth. But action? Action is your ally. It doesn't care how messy your first step is. It only cares that you took one. Because every time you act in spite of imperfection, you rewrite your identity. You stop being a spectator of your potential, and become the architect of your future. One imperfect brick at a time. Most people think belief comes first, that you need to feel confident before you act, that you need to fully trust yourself before you try. But that's not how real transformation works. Belief doesn't lead to action. Action creates belief. And that's the loop that builds momentum. Every time you take a step forward, even a shaky, uncertain one, you're proving something to yourself. I move, even when I'm afraid. I act, even when I doubt. And that proof becomes belief. Over time, those small actions, the emails sent, the workouts completed, the tasks done when no one's watching, they stack up and speak louder than any insecurity. You don't need to feel ready to begin. You need to begin, and the readiness will follow. That's because your brain responds to evidence, not affirmations. It builds confidence from consistency, not from pep talks. Each time you take action, even without motivation, you send your nervous system a signal: I can be trusted. And that changes everything. Self-trust isn't built in one moment. It's built in thousands of invisible decisions: showing up, following through, doing what you said you'd do. That's where true belief lives. Not in how you talk to yourself when you're dreaming, but in what you do when it's hard, boring, or uncomfortable. So stop waiting to feel powerful. Instead, act powerless but committed. That's how you build real power, the kind that doesn't depend on emotion or circumstance. Because here's the truth: the most disciplined, focused, confident people you admire, they started just like you, unsure, doubtful, a little broken. But they moved anyway. And with each act of effort, they rewired their identity. That's what belief really is. Not something you're born with, something you build, one deliberate action at a time. If you're still waiting for a sign, this is it. Not a lightning bolt. Not a big breakthrough. Just one tiny moment of truth: you're allowed to begin, right now, with whatever you've got. And what you've got is enough for today. You don't need a master plan. You don't need the next 10 steps figured out. You need 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes of focused, intentional action can shift the direction of your entire day. Because it's not about completing a big goal, it's about breaking the spell of inaction. When you choose to do the smallest thing, clear your desk, walk around the block, drink water, send the message you've been avoiding, you are not just completing a task. You are waking yourself up. You're interrupting the identity of the person who always puts things off, always waits, always hesitates. And that interruption is everything. That's the 5-minute miracle. It's how you break the chain of self-doubt. Because once you act, your brain says, we're not stuck anymore. And the moment you're no longer stuck, you remember something important: you've had power this whole time. You just forgot. The miracle isn't the action itself, it's what the action unlocks inside you. The shift in self-image. The burst of clarity. The return of self-trust. No, 5 minutes won't change your life. But it will change your direction. And that is where transformation truly begins, not at the finish line, but in the quiet decision to no longer let this day go to waste. So close this video, and start something. Anything. Even silently, even imperfectly. And let that action be your declaration: I'm not waiting anymore. I'm moving. Because 5 minutes of courage today is worth more than a lifetime of waiting for the right moment.